Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, federal prosecutors will charge Sheriff Joe Arpaio with criminal contempt of court. We'll talk about it. Also tonight, how to get information for voting on the retention of judges. And we'll hear about a local community action agency. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Federal prosecutors say they will charge Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio with criminal contempt of court. Prosecutors say that Arpaio willfully ignored a judge's orders in a racial profiling case.
The criminal portion of it deals with the state of mind of the sheriff. Willful, intentional, that type of attitude, and it just isn't there. And I'm confident that we will convince the trier of fact that he is not in criminal contempt in any way. He's been in law enforcement for 57 years. He was with DEA for most of his earlier career. He's been the sheriff since 1992. People that know him know that this is not a man that violates or snubs orders of courts.
For the chief law enforcement officer of Maricopa County to be found guilty of contempt of court, it would be huge for us. It would mean he would have to leave office. It would mean he would it would be done to him what he's done to others. But what is more important for us than to see Joe Arpaio behind bars is to really end the culture and racial profiling that he's established not only in Maricopa County but in the entire state of Arizona.
Joining us now to talk about the legal aspects of the Arpaio case, former U.S. Attorney for Arizona, Paul Charlton. He's currently a partner at Steptoe & Johnson. And Stephen Montoya, civil rights attorney from the firm Montoya, Lucero, and Pastor. Good to have you both here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Paul, explain the Justice Department's decision. What's going on here?
Well, you'll recall, Ted, that there was a formal, if you will, invitation from Judge Murray Snow for the Department of Justice to consider bringing charges against Joe Arpaio and others. And on Tuesday, at what was scheduled to be a status hearing, the Department of Justice, in, I think can be fairly described as a surprise move, announced that they were going to, in fact, bring charges against Joe Arpaio. And that for other reasons that we can get into if you like later on, they were not yet going to bring charges against the other individuals who were referred to the Department of Justice for prosecution.
Well, let's go ahead and get into that right now. Only Arpaio charged? Was that a bit of a surprise?
I can't say that it was. Sheriff Arpaio has said ad nauseum that he is the sheriff and that he is in charge. This is the fruit of that. He is the sheriff. He is in charge. As he admits, the buck stops with him. The responsibility is his. He's the primary target. He was the primary wrongdoer.
The two aides and his defense attorney that were mentioned previously by Judge Snow, are they off the hook?
I don't think they're off the hook. I think there will be a delay in considering what charges, if any, to pursue against them. But I really do think the main target is the man that was elected to the position, and that would be Sheriff Arpaio, who admits he was in charge.
And again, this case involves criminal contempt of court. A very brief overview, please.
Well, I think you heard his lawyer, Mel McDonald, talk about the most salient factor in this decision-making process for both Judge Snow and the Department of Justice. Nobody debates. In fact, Joe Arpaio and all of his lawyers agree that he was in contempt of court, that he refused to follow or failed to follow the court's orders. The debate now becomes whether or not that was an intentional refusal to follow the judge's orders or something less than intentional. The Department of Justice agrees now with Judge Snow. They say, we agree that this was intentional, that the contempt was criminal, and that we're going to go forward with a criminal charge.
Has Arpaio been officially charged? Not yet, correct?
I think that probably happened today.
Oh, it did happen today. Okay.
I believe it did. The judge ordered the filing to happen today.
That's correct.
Do we know today if it's going to be a jury trial?
No. Paul and I were talking about that before the show. I don't think we know that. However, it's my view that he's not entitled to a jury trial for a few reasons. First of all, he's being charged with an offense that would result in a penalty of no more than 6 months in jail. So I believe because it's a so-called petty offense or a misdemeanor that he's not entitled to a jury trial. I know that he believes under a criminal statute that indicates that in some criminal contempt cases you're not entitled to a jury trial, that that you are entitled to a jury trial. He thinks that that statute is applicable. I disagree. I disagree because, first of all, the government of the United States ultimately was a party in this case, because you remember the United States sued Sheriff Arpaio as well, and that action was consolidated into the Melendres case. And the statute specifically exempts cases in which the United States is a participant. So I don't think he's entitled to a jury trial for that reason, but there's another reason, the nature of the contempt. The statute is inapplicable if the contempt arises during the adjudication of the underlying case itself. And that's exactly what happened in this case. There was an order, in fact an injunction, and Judge Snow made voluminous findings that Sheriff Arpaio intentionally violated it. So because it was his contempt or his disobedience to the court order transpired in the context of the underlying case, I don't think he's entitled to a jury trial. And I'll just add this. In some ways, this is an old hat. Sheriff Arpaio has already had his chance. His lawyers have already had their chance to demonstrate to the finder of fact that it wasn't intentional, and they overwhelmingly lost. Judge Snow made paragraph after paragraph of voluminous findings detailing the evidence demonstrating that Sheriff Arpaio's contempt of court was in fact intentional. So I think it's going to be a slam dunk against Sheriff Arpaio, and I think Judge Bolton, who's a very tough judge, is going to come down exactly the way her colleague, who's also a very tough judge, came down.
The idea that because the 6-month cap, which I think most folks saw as surprising or curious or needed to have a better explanation, why was that put in place, and was that put in place in part to keep it away from a jury trial?
Well, Stephen's analysis of the law is exactly correct in the sense that there's going to be a debate. And for this reason, Ted, as you pointed out, under the Constitution, we are, all of us, entitled to a jury trial when charged with a felony offense. But if you are charged with an offense that is 6 months incarceration at risk or less, then you are not entitled to a jury trial. And so the government, for strategically sound reasons, I think we'd all agree, has gone to the judge and said, Your Honor, we'd like for you to be the finder of fact on this case, not a jury. Mel McDonald, for reasons we would all understand and agree, has said, no, Your Honor, we want a jury. We want those people who will forever follow into Joe Arpaio's point of view on this, and that's why we want a jury. So that's yet to be decided. Those legal issues will have to be weighed on by the judge. And because this is so novel, because this really has not been territory tread often,
Yes.
this is going to be the kind of debate that Stephen just pointed out under the law that Judge Bolton's going to have to make a decision on for the first time in this state.
How much time does she have to make that decision?
Not a lot of time, because I believe she scheduled the trial for early December,
Yes.
so she doesn't have a lot of time. I don't think it's going to take her a lot of time. It is, however, ultimately going to take somebody a lot of time, because Sheriff Arpaio has a right to appeal, which he frequently exercises, albeit unsuccessfully. So this is going to be another case that could be drawn out for years and is going to cost the taxpayer another large bundle of money. Arguably, I know the county is saying it doesn't have to pay because it's a criminal proceeding. I think that's also going to be the subject of litigation.
The obstruction of justice, I know that there was an avenue there as well, an investigation, referral, I believe, on that. Was there not a referral on obstruction of justice as well?
There was.
Okay.
Judge Snow referred that as well.
What happened to that?
The Department of Justice said, while we agree that we can go forward with the contempt charge against Joe Arpaio, as to obstruction of justice against Sheridan, Bailey, and Joe Arpaio's lawyer, Ms. Iafrate, we think there may be a statute of limitations issue, which is to say that these charges may have been brought too late and we may not be able to go forward. Interestingly, it's the judge who said, I'm not so sure you're right about that. Why don't we wait a little bit and see if you are right on that? So that issue is yet another one that's yet to be decided.
Okay, so that's still out there.
Correct.
You know, when you were describing everything here, there was a real Nixonian kind of scent going on here. I mean, it wasn't necessarily what he did. It was not following the judge's orders, correct?
Very proudly not following the judge's orders, expressly saying, I'm the sheriff, what I say goes. He, as Judge Snow specifically found, based on trial testimony, he intentionally, repeatedly ignored the judge's orders. So I feel there was no choice but to try to hold him accountable for that. The timing issue, I think the Justice Department had to do it quickly. As Paul pointed out, there might be a statute of limitations problem. Some people are going to claim it's too late. You can't sit on these types of charges. You have to bring them as quickly as you reasonably can. I think the Justice Department actually should have brought the charges more quickly, so this could have been resolved for or against Sheriff Arpaio before the election.
Can a judge put a clock on a statute of limitations there? Can you mess with Father Time that way?
You can't, but you can invite the lawyers, as judges often do, to give her some assistance in understanding when the statute of limitations actually runs. And to Steve's point, it's a very interesting one. The Department of Justice made this announcement on Tuesday, on the eve of the election.
Yes.
And typically the Department of Justice's policy is to wait before bringing charges or announcing charges publicly until after an election, because the Department of Justice's view generally is we don't want to interfere with the outcome of an election based upon mere charges. Here they went forward, and there's going to be some criticism for that, and there already has been from Joe Arpaio's camp, a claim that the charges being announced on the eve of the election are a politically motivated decision. But I think Steve is right to point out that there are statute of limitations issues here.
How far does that claim go, legal-wise?
I don't think it goes very far, and I think it can be resolved by looking at the genesis of this. Let's talk about the individual who started this other than Sheriff Arpaio, the finder of fact. That would be Judge Snow. Paul knows better than I do. I think he's worked with Judge Snow more than I have, that he is not a political animal. He was nominated by a Republican to the state court bench. He was nominated by another Republican to the federal bench. Believe me, Judge Snow, whom I greatly respect, is not a flaming liberal. I would say he's conservative to moderately conservative. He is not a partisan judge. I think he bent over backwards to give Sheriff Arpaio the benefit of every doubt in this case, and Sheriff Arpaio failed the test, and Judge Snow did what he had to do under the law.
All right, gentlemen, great discussion. Thank you both for joining us. We certainly do appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, Ted.
Inside scoop on what's happening at Arizona PBS. Become an insider. You'll receive weekly updates on the most anticipated upcoming programs and events. Get the Insider delivered to your email inbox. Visit azpbs.org to sign up today.
Arizona Superior Court judges are not elected in the state's most populous counties, but voters can choose whether or not to retain those judges on the bench. The Commission on Judicial Performance Review is a service that helps voters judge the judges. For more, we welcome Mike Hellam, the chair of the commission, and Arizona State Bar CEO John Phelps, who will also talk about the State Bar's Finish the Ballot campaign. Good to have you both here. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
Judicial Performance Review, give me a better overview of what that is.
It's a constitutional commission appointed by the Chief Justice, charged with the responsibility of evaluating the performance of appointed judges in superior and appellate courts, and recommending to the public whether in the commission's opinion the judge up for retention should be retained or not.
And what are the criteria that are looked at?
Oh, there are multiple criteria. The major categories are legal knowledge, the correct application of legal precedents and legal principles, comportment, how do you treat people in the courtroom, are you courteous, do you listen to them? Communication, does the judge explain fully and clearly what is going on and what the decision is and why? And there are some administrative components, whether the judge issues timely orders or not.
And the idea is for voters to go find out information on these judges and decide whether or not it's a yes or a no, correct?
That's correct.
Now, to get down there, though, you have to, quote unquote, finish the ballot. Talk to us about the Finish the Ballot campaign.
Well, thanks, Ted, for giving us the opportunity to talk about this. We just, in fact, sent out to all 24,000 lawyers today an email message encouraging them to finish the ballot, but more importantly, encouraging them to talk to their family and friends about finishing the ballot. And we provided some information on how to do that and a fun Powtoon short video clip that can be sent to family and friends to help them figure all of this out. It's an unusual part of the ballot, and a lot of folks naturally ask lawyers about judges and what to do, and so we thought, why not provide some tools and put some information in the hands of lawyers who are going to be asked those questions.
Is there a link now to the performance review as well?
Yes, there is.
So the voters get all sorts of information. How often are these judges voted out?
Rarely.
Excuse me, too rare? Do you think it's too rarely, personally?
I wouldn't make that kind of a judgment. Most of the judges we find are doing a very, very good job. There are a few, and there have been a few, which in the Commission's opinion simply should not be on the bench. I've been on the Commission for about 12 years, and in that time, one judge has been voted out and two have retired rather than face retention.
Interesting. Recourse for judges who are either, before the vote even happens, let's say I'm a judge and I look at the performance review and I don't recognize that person, I don't think I'm that person. What kind of recourse does a judge have?
Well, Ted, actually, I defer to Mike on that question because there is a process for judges to learn about the evaluations and to also challenge them.
Yeah, there's another part of JPR which we call the conventions of a judge, a lawyer, and a public member will survey all of the comments and all of the review of the judges and meet with the judge in a conference team to help the judge understand what his or her weaknesses are and what he or she can do to improve.
If a judge, let's say a judge is voted off the bench, can they return?
Well, if they can get reappointed by the governor.
Okay, so you have to, but to get reappointed by the governor, you got that on your resume.
You do indeed.
Yeah.
Not likely.
Not likely, okay. As far as voters getting, do we have information, any metrics on how many voters actually get down to these decisions on the ballot?
You know, Ted, I don't know what that number is. It's not very high, and so that's one of the reasons why we've worked with the JPR Commission and with our members to try to encourage folks to finish the ballot. So I don't know what the number is, but it hasn't been a very high percentage.
So if you're speaking to the average voter, we've got the average voter watching right now, what do you tell them regarding finishing the ballot, the importance, what to look for, why you're here?
Well, it's part of our civic duty, I think, to exercise that vote. And because Arizona has established this system to give voters the opportunity to provide input, it's an important part of completing that obligation in our view. And so we've given that information out to our members, but also the voters pamphlet contains information that the JPR puts together. There's a website where voters can go on, and it's very easy to follow. You click on the county that you're in, and it lists the judges that have been evaluated that are up for retention election. You can click on that name. It's very simple. It does take some extra effort.
Yes.
And so that's why we're putting in the extra effort, because most folks, once they're done with president, senators, representatives, city council, and so on and so forth, you get down towards the end of the ballot and they're worn out. And
What-
so,
and you're also dealing with names you've never heard
Absolutely.
of before. So the idea is to get them more familiar with the names.
yeah.
The legal system, the judicial system only works if you have well-qualified, well-meaning people objectively reviewing the evidence before them in a court. And when you have good people, we have to keep them. When we don't have good people, we have to replace them. And it's up to the public to do its job after we have done our jobs.
Okay, judicial performance review can be found on the web,
On the website,
and the website is?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
How
But-
about
That sounds good.
azcourts.gov/JPR?
You can go to the Supreme Court website and find a link to it.
All right, we got it on the screen there. So,
Okay.
and as far as finish the ballot campaign, where do you look on the web for that?
azbar.org, and it's prominently placed there, and folks can click on that.
All right, very
Get the
good.
information.
Good to have you both here. Thanks for
Thank you.
joining
Thank
us. Tonight's edition of Arizona Giving and Leading looks at a Tempe organization helping those in need. The Tempe Community Action Agency is a social service provider that takes a comprehensive approach to alleviating hunger, poverty, and homelessness in Tempe and surrounding communities. TCAA's executive director is Deborah Arteaga. We welcome you to Arizona Horizon. Give me a better definition of the Tempe Community Action Agency.
Right, so you mentioned our mission statement. We work to alleviate hunger, poverty, and homelessness. And our name is a little bit of a misnomer because we don't just limit services to Tempe residents. We actually serve individuals and families throughout the East Valley. About 43,000 seniors, adults, and children served by our programs every year.
The idea of a comprehensive approach to hunger and poverty, what does that mean?
So we work not only to address financial and housing crises that individuals and families may be experiencing when they come to TCAA, our programs are also designed to help prevent those crises in the future.
So when we talk about emergency services, what do you offer here? What's going on?
Probably our largest and most familiar program is TCAA's Food Pantry. So our Food Pantry provides about 40,000 food boxes to the community on an annual basis. The food boxes are pretty substantial. They're close to 30 pounds. So in the equivalent of food provided to the community, it's about 1.2 million meals per year that's being extended into the community through the Food Pantry. What's unique about the Food Pantry is that we offer evening hours so that individuals who are working and struggling to provide for their family can access services in the evening. We also operate 2 community gardens, and so we take fresh fruit and produce from the gardens to boost the nutritional content of the food boxes.
I like the idea of the community gardens there, organic foods and vegetables, huh?
That's right. And
Right
eggs.
out of the ground in Tempe.
That's right.
As far utilities and housing as well for emergency services, I would imagine.
Right. So individuals or families that are struggling with making their utility bill payments, they may be facing a disconnect or a possible eviction for not being able to pay rent or mortgage and experiencing all kinds of financial crises, can come to us for help with that. And we find that, by providing small sums of financial assistance when families are in need, we could help prevent homelessness in the future for them.
I thought this was interesting, the Interfaith Homeless Emergency Lodging Program. What's that all about?
That's iHelp. So iHelp is Tempe's only shelter resource for homeless adults. iHelp has been in existence for about 10 years, and it's a unique model for addressing homelessness. We work in partnerships with 10 different faith communities. They provide overnight lodging, a safe and secure place to sleep, And during the day, our case management services come into play to help with addressing barriers to finding a job and finding permanent housing. I help is serving about 565 men and women on an annual basis.
Now, so churches and places of worship are basically the spot for folks to go to get the help, or staging areas? How does that work?
They come to TCAA for assistance. We put them through case management, and then the overnight lodging sites are the faith community locations. So every night of the year, there is overnight lodging available. We're serving about 35 to 40 per night, and it's a great and cost-effective model for addressing homelessness.
And you mentioned senior centers or senior services. It looks like you manage 3 centers in Tempe and Scottsdale?
That's right. The Escalante Senior Center, the North Tempe, and the Granite Reef Senior Center. The senior centers are a great resource to prevent, isolation and loneliness that can really affect the health and well-being of seniors. And at those locations, seniors can benefit from congregate meals, educational activities, as well as home-delivered meals for those who are homebound.
And from that end of the spectrum, we go to the other end with pre- and postnatal care services
That's right.
as well.
Infancy to late adulthood. So our Health Start program has health outreach workers that work with low-income families that are expecting. And with pre- and postnatal care, we work to prevent low birth weight babies.
Wow. So the biggest challenge you face right now, this nonprofit agency, what are you seeing?
Probably the challenge, and I think, and the opportunity is the constant demand, the need in the community. Where 43,000 individuals per year. We see the need go up more and more every year. We can't do this work without community partnerships and the volunteers that help support our programs. So it really takes a community to solve those difficult issues.
All right, and we had your website up there on the Tempe, once again?
TempeAction.org.
TempeAction.org. Again, not affiliated necessarily with the city, but a nonprofit that works
That's
in
correct.
Tempe. All right.
That's correct.
Congratulations on great work.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Appreciate
joining
it.
us. Thursday on Arizona Horizon, we'll hear from the author of a new book on the sometimes fine line between treason and patriotism. And we'll take a tour of the Arizona Museum of Natural History. That's on the next Arizona Horizon. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.